I know you must have installed IntelliJ IDEA for this course, but to have a clearer understanding of how a Java program is compiled and run, we will be using an ordinary text editor and a PowerShell terminal. You can search and install VS Code or Visual Studio Code from the internet through your browser. So when you've done that, create a new folder in any directory of your choice, maybe on the desktop, anywhere. So name it sample Java code, as you see here. So open up the folder in VS Code. So you can go ahead to add a new file to this folder. Name it sample.java, as you can see here. So in this sample.java file, this is where we are going to write our first Java program. So every Java program begins with class declaration, and that's part of why Java is defined as class-based. So add our first Java class. So I've added here a sample Java class with a method and a print statement. So to create a class in Java, you begin with the public modifier plus the class keyword plus the identifier and the body, which is denoted by an open curly bracket and a closed curly bracket, as you can see here. So in our case, we have added a class called sample. Sample is the identifier. If you don't know what identifiers are the names you give to entities in Java. The entities can be a class, it can be a method, and it can be a variable. So an easier way to remember how to create a class in Java is to follow this formula that I have added as a comment in the first line. So almost all Java programs must have a main class. Do not be confused. A main class is simply a class with the main method, which denotes a starting point for the Java application when the app is run. So as you can see, I've added a main method here in this sample Java code. So this main method is like a starting point for this Java application that we have created. So if you have more than one Java class in your application, you must have a main class. So the main class is simply the class that is carrying the main method. So but for our case, we have only one class for this Java application, and that's why we have the main method inside. So to create a main method, you might not understand what a method is actually. We will discuss more on what the main method is and what methods are in general later on in this course. Just know that main method is like the starting point of the Java application. So I've added the formula to always remember how to add a main method to your application until we discuss what the main method is. So to add a main method, you begin with a modifier, public, and a static keyword, the void return type, and the identifier main. So identifiers are, just like I defined before, the names we give to entities in Java. So identifiers are literally open to us to name them whatever we want. Just like we name this sample, we can name it whatever we want. So but for main, we are not given the flexibility of naming the main method whatever we want. So it must be main, and Java is case sensitive, so it must be written in all lower caps this way, and a parameters list. So this is what we call a parameters list. It's like an extra information you give to a method. So we have also added an extra statement here. So a statement is simply a line of code that does something in Java or in any programming language. So what this statement does is to print "this is my first Java program" or "this is my first Java application" to the console. So if you are wondering what the console is your terminal where you are going to be compiling and running this application. As you have probably guessed, console output and input is not used frequently in most real-world Java applications, but to learn and test all the bits that you have learned of about the entire Java library, you will need the console. So let us go ahead to compile our first Java program. Firstly, click on Files and save the changes that you have done to this file. Open the terminal. So you can see a terminal menu. Click on New Terminal. So in this terminal, we invoke the Java compiler on the application by typing java plus the file name with its extension, in this case .java. So the file name is sample and its extension is .java. So to compile the application, you type java or javac plus the file name, which is sample, plus the extension .java, this way, and then you hit enter on your keyboard. So you can see a class file is generated for our application here, which means there are no errors. So what this means is that if you have errors in your code, the compiler will throw it out for you as a stack trace. Otherwise, your application will compile and generate a class file, just as we see here. So the compiler has generated a .class file for our sample Java program. So what happens if we have some error in our program? So let's delete the class file. You can go ahead to delete this class file. Yes, move to the recycle bin. So let's make a deliberate error in our program. Let's say we remove this ending semicolon. We'll go ahead to save the file and compile the code once more. There you can see that it says that we have one error. And what does the error say? The error is that we are missing a semicolon. That a semicolon is expected at line 11. So we'll go back to our program and then we'll look at line number 11, which means we are missing a semicolon at the end. So it's expected of us to add a semicolon at the end. From the terminal, you can see the position where we need to add what is missing from here. So it means that at the end of the line, we are supposed to add the ending semicolon here. So you add the semicolon and we compile. Do not forget to save the file. So we'll save the file and then go ahead to a compile. And you can see that there is no more errors and a class file is generated for us. So to run the application, remember how we learned that Java applications need a Java runtime environment to run. So we invoke the Java runtime executable on our application by using Java command plus application name in the terminal, this time without the Java extension. So go to the terminal menu and open up a new terminal. In the terminal, type the Java command plus the application name, which is sample, without the extension name this time. So you press enter. There you have it. You can see the output. This is my first Java application. So what happens is that the runtime executable has a class loader which loads the class file and looks for a main method, then begin executing the first line it finds in the main method. Let's experiment this by removing the main method. So go ahead to remove the main method. Save the file. Delete the class file that was generated during the previous compilation. Let's compile it again. So good, the class file was generated successfully. So let's try to run the program again. And press enter. So you can see it throws this runtime error. This proves it that for your application to run, it requires the main method. So let us return everything back to how it was by restoring the main method. So we'll restore the main method. I'll go ahead to compile the code once more. So save the file compile with java c sample.java and hit enter on the keyboard. So you can see that it compiles successfully without any errors. Another thing to note is that it's possible to have many classes in one source file. When that's the case, your main class should be declared public. Also, it should be the only public class in that file. So right now our main class is the public class. So let's add one more class. So now we have added a new class. In this case, the main class should be the only public class. So as you can see here, we have our main class, which carries the main method as the public class. And we have added a new class called something. So let's save this file. Open up terminal and compile the code with java c plus sample.java. So note what happens. Two class files were correspondingly created when the code is compiled. A something.class file and a sample.class file was created. So this is what happens when you have more than one class file in your source file. So here we have the class something and the class sample and the corresponding class files that is generated. I know there is a lot of ceremony to writing code in Java, but believe me, it gets interesting and fun as you get better understanding on how to program in Java and applying the knowledge in bigger projects. So that's pretty much everything there is about writing, compiling and running your first Java program. In the next video, we'll take a look at some key terms most associated with writing Java programs. See you in the next.